All right, so as we wrap up this section about the proper approach to blogging, let's wrap it up with some things to avoid when you're blogging, particularly things to avoid when you're blogging specifically for content marketing and for a value-driven approach, as we just covered. So the first thing, and this tends to be the most controversial, so I'm going to go ahead and rip off the Band-Aid and get it out of the way first. But one thing to avoid is being overly creative. Now, I don't mean don't be creative at all. There is a certain level of creativity that's required for creating valuable, engaging blog content. But what I mean is don't be overly creative. Overly creative is great if you have a personal blog and you're trying to be really cute with your titles and your writing and really artistic. That's cool for that. But when you're taking the content marketing value-driven approach, being overly creative sometimes can be a hindrance because it creates a barrier oftentimes between what you want to communicate and what actually gets communicated. So for example, if you're making a title for your blog post and you want to be real cute with it, you end up making a title that actually doesn't accurately summarize what value is found in that article because you want to be creative. Maybe it's got a funny saying or something like that. And as a result, you're not super clear about what value you're providing. And if you're not really clear about the value that you're providing, you'll see that click-through rate be really low because people want to click on things that value is clearly presented right there in the title. Same thing for the actual post itself. I mean, it's a running joke, when you go to a recipe website, you got to swipe through 4 paragraphs of the author of the recipe telling their life story to actually get to the recipe. And you want to avoid that kind of stuff. So you can give little, personal quips here and there to make it a little more approachable, but you don't want to be overly creative to the point where instead of getting straight to the value, you're writing like a little novel about, a life experience. And now, depending on your industry, if you're in an industry that's a real personal thing, like, therapy or coaching or something like that, for personal stuff, having that in there can be valuable. But you don't want to get carried away with it. You want to make sure that you can get to the value as quickly as possible. And then number 2 is inconsistent posting. And this is a big struggle for people too, because I think a lot of us know that you need to post consistently. There's a lot of debate out there about how consistently you should post for blogging. What I always tell people is however often you can post valuable information. So don't post fluff pieces just for the sake of meeting an imaginary quota that you've created for yourself. Make sure that you're leading with the value, and so come up with a cadence that you feel comfortable with. If that's once every 6 to 8 weeks, then that's great, but stick to that cadence. Give your audience a good indicator of how often they can expect new content. One of the things that will really undercut your growth when it comes to blog and content marketing is when you post a couple of posts one day and then every day for a week you post a new post and then nobody hears anything from you for 2 months. That creates, I wouldn't say a lack of trust, but it creates a lack of awareness because you got on people's radar for a week straight, but then you kind of dropped off the face of the earth. So you want to post consistent. It would be better if you've got enough posts to post every day for the next week. I would recommend, until you have an idea of how frequently you're going to be able to come up with valuable content, spacing those a week apart or 2 weeks apart, so that you've got content scheduled out so that you can continually provide that value on a consistent basis, as opposed to these little bursts of information and then a lull. So you want to make sure that you can post as consistently as possible. Now, you don't have to stick to a strict regimen, as I said, but in general, you want to be able to post on a consistent cadence so that your audience knows how often they can expect useful information from you. Number 3 mistake to avoid when you're blogging is having no internal links. An internal link is a link to another page on your website. It could be another blog post, could be a service page. Typically, you don't want to link to your homepage because they're already on your site. They understand how to get to your homepage. So it's linking to something else valuable and relevant that's already on your website. But a huge mistake that I see people making a lot, which really kind of undercuts the user journey and keeping people on your site, is having no internal links, no opportunities where someone can continue to engage with your site beyond that particular blog post. And then the next one is no external links. So obviously an external link is a link off of your site to another website. Now this might seem counterproductive, right? Because you want to keep people on your website. One easy way around this is when you're setting links on your blog, make sure it opens in a new tab so the person doesn't actually get taken away from your site. Once they close that tab, they're back on your blog post. That's a good best practice for blogging, for SEO. But you want external links to be present because external links are very valuable for SEO. External links show search engines that you play nice with others. It also shows them that you are willing to point out authoritative sources that are related, that you've got the user in mind, not just yourself and not just your business. This is another huge mistake that I'll see people with really low authority scores, and then I'll go audit their blog and I realize they don't have any external links there. And as we go in and start adding some external links, you'll see that authority start to creep up and you'll actually gain rankings from that. So again, it might seem counterintuitive to the ultimate goal of getting people on your site and keeping them there, but it's going to be great for your SEO. And that's one of the things that you need to intentionally do. Make sure that you're linking out externally. Make sure those sources that you're linking out to, though, are authoritative. Don't link out to just your buddy's site because you like him. But make sure it's authoritative sources in your industry and along with that topic. So not linking to sources. Now this point is specifically for factual information. So if you're giving statistics, if you're giving results of a study, make sure that you link straight to that source. Trustworthiness is a big factor of SEO, especially nowadays with people claiming fake news and fake information everywhere, and it's hard to know what's true and what's not. To keep your website above reproach when it comes to that, whenever you're sharing statistics, whenever you're sharing scientific, factual information, make sure you link directly to the source where you got that from, and try to make sure that source didn't get it from somewhere else. So if you need to track down the original source of that information, then do that. You might find out in that process that the information that you were about to post actually wasn't factual and there wasn't a lot of factual basis for it. So, do the research, do your due diligence, and then make sure you incorporate links to sources for your factual information right there in your blog. Next is keyword stuffing. So keywords are obviously huge for SEO. I've got a course about keyword research for beginners. So if you're not sure where to start with, coming up with keywords and a keyword strategy, I highly recommend taking that course. It's included if you're a pro member, so you can go do that now. But keyword stuffing is essentially when you decide what keywords you want to rank for and you just put it in your blog post as much as possible. So there's two reasons why I discourage keyword stuffing. Number one is it doesn't read natural. And so, sometimes you can read something and you can tell that it's keyword stuff, right? It seems like it's written for an algorithm, not for you as a human. And you just see the same term over and over all the way through, almost in every paragraph and every header. And you're like, okay, I get it, and so it's off-putting to the reader if you keyword stuff, number one, and ultimately you want to provide value for the reader. But also there are penalties in SEO for keyword stuffing. There is kind of a threshold where, if you include your keyword, based on how many words your post is, if that keyword has a certain density, then a search engine may automatically flag that piece of content as keyword stuffed and not rank it at all. Might even not index it for search because of that. So there's a fine art for this where instead of keyword stuffing, you do, make sure that the keywords you want to target is in your metadata, your title, your description, your header, your H1 header. You can put it in some of your headers down throughout the page, but use related keywords. I call these semantically related keywords. These are keywords that are not exactly like your primary keyword, but they're within the same topic. They may mean the same thing. but it's a different word altogether, use those throughout your post, because that's going to further enhance the general idea and rankability of your post for that search. So definitely avoid keyword stuffing for those two reasons when it comes to blogging for content marketing. And then lastly, conversely, the flip side of that is not having a keyword strategy at all. So it's just writing, a post with no clear direction on what you want to rank for. And again, that keyword research course that I have, go check that out if you want to figure out how to really hone in on the keywords that you should be targeting. Because when you write blog content, it's really important that you go into it with a keyword strategy. So when I write blogs, that's where I start. I do the keyword research, find out what people are looking for, and then I determine a keyword that I want to rank for, and then I build the content around that. So these are the things to avoid. Lastly, not having a keyword strategy is definitely something to avoid if SEO is top of mind for you and SEO is something that you value when it comes to your blog and your content strategy.